Hey everyone, Crisis here. I just wanted to start this video off by thanking you guys for watching, any newcomers or those returning alike. For those unsubscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did so. I have a ton of content on comic books and video games, who would win type videos as well as video essays. I as well stream pretty frequently on here, general hangouts as well as let's plays. If you end up liking this video, be sure to check out other content on my channel, like and subscribe, and support me on Patreon if you'd be so kind. Thank you, and enjoy. Today, we're looking at grand evils from two of the most beloved franchises in gaming history, Ganondorf from The Legend of Zelda versus Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. This is a long discussed matchup from across the internet and even on my own channel. I feel well enough equipped to cover Ganon's skills and abilities, seeing as I have made at least one other Zelda power scaling video, but as far as Final Fantasy, that's not my wheelhouse, so I have Key Issues Garrick, fresh off the heels of his video on Cloud Strife's power level, to help me explain who would win between the Demon King and the One-Winged Angel. We'll be looking at the feats performed in the original version of FF7, not so much the remake. With all that said, let's take a look first at the raw power of Sephiroth.
So Sephiroth is an interesting case. Even at his most downplayed, he'd still be easily planetary as he scales above Ifrit, who could turn the world to ash. However, he's much more impressive than that. During the events of Crisis Core, Sephiroth easily defeated his fellow Soldier First Class, Zack Fair. Zack was able to defeat Minerva, a feat thought impossible by Shinra. Minerva is so powerful that her power cannot be contained or even measured by Shinra. To explain how insane that is, Shinra is able to contain the power of various summons within summon materia. Each of these powerful beings are able to create and maintain pocket dimensions of their own unique space-times that are mirrors of the Final Fantasy VII universe. At a minimum, they would be universal in total power, whereas Minerva is far above them. Shinra cannot even measure her power without her overloading their equipment. So, in summary, Zack defeated Minerva, a being far above universal summons, and then Sephiroth easily defeated Zack. And this is all before his death, where within the lifestream, he was able to absorb power and knowledge from the lifestream itself, further amplifying his power far beyond the entire main party. But following these events is when things really get out of control, and I'll try to keep this as brief as I can, but it's pretty complicated. So each entry in the Final Fantasy series takes place within a universe, and each one of these universes are all connected as a part of a multiverse contained within the Void, a dimension of nothingness and a realm of formation that transcends time and space itself. The Void houses infinite universes, among which some of these branch into infinite parallel worlds. Towards the tail end of Final Fantasy V, X-Death obtained the power of the Void and planned to use it to reduce everything to nothingness. During the battle, he eventually loses control of it, but then merges with it, becoming Neo X-Death, an entity whose mere existence threw reality into disarray. But Neo X-Death still carried on with the objective of ending reality. However, he was stopped by the Warriors of Light, who Gilgamesh scales to. Gilgamesh is a character who travels the multiverse and battles with various characters throughout the series, characters that Cloud Strife would scale to via his appearance in Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, this could be considered non-canon, however, the Ultimania provides more information, stating, quote, Cloud can be summoned from the world of Final Fantasy VII via the power of a transporter device, end quote. Showing us that Cloud came directly from his world, and just to further support this, all of his abilities fall in line with the Final Fantasy VII's rules and mechanics. So after absorbing vast amounts of knowledge from within the lifestream and building a new body, Sephiroth became far more powerful than he ever was when he was a soldier, stronger than the individual members of Avalanche, including Cloud, meaning Sephiroth would scale above Cloud, who scales to Gilgamesh, who in turn scales to Neo X-Death, which is a multiversal plus level character, being able to destroy infinite universes, which also branch into their own infinite pocket realities.
Ganondorf, the Demon King, takes many forms throughout the Zelda timeline. However, for the sake of this matchup, his abilities should all roughly carry over across his appearances, as for the most part, each time we see him across the series, he stems from the same source. For example, both Gerudo Kings seen in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess share the exact same history up until young Link intervenes at the end of Ocarina of Time. So generally, each time we see Ganon, he should have access to roughly the same abilities and power. Of course, there are certain factors such as failed resurrections, how many Triforce pieces he possesses, and so on. But overall, it's fair to attribute the same qualities to each canon version of the King of Evil. As for Ganon in Ocarina of Time, he was stated to be the greatest threat Hyrule had ever seen, which, as explained in my video pertaining to the Hero of Time, this would likely place his power above the likes of Demise, who was stated to have created a hyperspace in Skyward Sword, a hyperspace being defined as a realm composed of at least 4 dimensions, meaning Ganon would likely have higher dimensional power. In the Zelda universe as well, the goddesses who created the realm of Hyrule and the Triforce also accidentally created millions of other parallel universes, all with their own unique space-times, such as Termina, Lorule, Subrosia, the Sacred Realm, the Ocean King's world, and so on. Ganon should scale to this, especially when he's in possession of the Triforce of Power, 1/3 of the ultimate force in the Zelda universe, which was as well crafted by the gods with the explicit purpose of mortals wielding said forces. Lowballing the word millions to mean at least 2 million universes, and assuming that the raw power of each Triforce piece are equal and split amongst thirds, if anything, the Triforce of Power is probably the strongest of the 3, Ganon should have the strength to withstand attacks capable of destroying around 700,000 space-times, which makes sense considering there are other attacks and defensive spells crafted by the same gods who created millions of dimensions, and the only thing that can effectively kill Ganon across pretty much every one of the Zelda games are the holy weapons like the Master Sword and light arrows, pretty much created specifically to combat him. They're kind of like his kryptonite.
In terms of speed, Sephiroth would scale to the Knights of the Round, who are the most powerful summons within Final Fantasy VII. They're basically able to fly around between galaxies in nearly an instant. Sephiroth also perceives and tracks a comet flying through space at faster than light speeds, catches it with his telekinesis, and then moves it. Both of these feats are trillions of times faster than the speed of light, and they're pretty consistent throughout the series. Of course, Sephiroth would also scale to other characters within Final Fantasy who are massively faster than light, reaching speeds up to 300 quadrillion times the speed of light, so yeah, he's pretty fast.
As for Ganondorf's speed, he should as well scale to the hero of legend, that being the various Links he faces across the series, as he's pretty much always the biggest threat the hero has to face in his games and always gives Link a fierce battle, with Breath of the Wild Link having reaction times calculated to be well within massively faster than light ranges, based on how slow lightning travels within Link's perception. There's as well various feats across the series of characters reacting to lasers, which move at the speed of light, or Ganon himself dodging light arrows all throughout the Wind Waker final battle, with at least those versions being described to be and behaving like light. You could perhaps make even greater arguments based on Ganondorf being above Demise, someone stated to have conquered time. However, given the fact that the character's still subject to having his timeline altered by time travel, and never really showing any of the qualities belonging to characters capable of just being beyond the speed formula, that being speed equals distance over time. So it doesn't seem like this term of conquering time means that he can just defy it outright and simply ignore time but still move and perceive things. But if you give any credence to the fact that time stops completely in certain areas in Ocarina of Time, yet Link can still move around in these spaces despite this, and Ganon can of course keep up with him, the Gerudo King might have legit infinite speed, but yeah, anyway.
He can cast Wall, which is powerful defensive magic that grants the effects of both barrier and magic barrier at once, which halves both physical and magical damage. He can cast Time Stop, which of course stops the time that affects his enemy. He can cast Sleep. He can Dispel, which takes away any special modifications or buffs that his opponent may grant themselves, including barriers, and this ability cannot be reflected, and works on both beneficial and detrimental modifications. As for passive abilities, he can read minds, become intangible, utilize telekinesis, transfigure himself into someone else found within his enemy's memories, fly, and create illusions. He can create portals or escape reality by literally cutting through the barriers of reality that hold the universe together. As for resistances, it would probably be easier to list what he doesn't resist compared to what he does, but I'll do my best to keep it brief. Sephiroth has resistance to magic in general, and resistance to fire, ice, lightning, and wind magic in particular. He's immune to poisons, he's immune to silence, which prevents the use of magic, sleep inducement, slow, time stop, mind manipulation, soul manipulation / soul absorption, banishment, space-time manipulation. With the spell Resist, he can ignore any status, debuff, curse, or any negative effect used by his opponent. As for various hacks abilities, Sephiroth is a causal, which is a sort of complicated term, but I'll try to simplify it. Basically means he operates on a different system of cause and effect than everyone else. This would grant him resistance to abilities such as causality manipulation, fate manipulation, and precognition. Sephiroth can destroy and even command Whispers, who are the arbiters of fate within Final Fantasy VII. He is beyond their ability to change fate and to affect the world around them, making him a causal. Additionally, he is immortal. If one person on the planet even remembers who he is, he can live on and return via his own willpower. Not only this, but Sephiroth can resist forces attempting to erase his consciousness. Even after death, his will within the lifestream can still drag your soul into the lifestream itself, killing you. Within the series, characters with strong wills can overpower universal laws. Sephiroth, having an exceptionally powerful will, can do this pretty easily. He can ignore the concept of death and overpower the very source of magic. Of course, this is a higher dimensional hacks, but to be more specific, after falling into the lifestream, Sephiroth's body was destroyed, but his indomitable will prevented him from having his own consciousness eroded and his spirit becoming assimilated into the lifestream, which is typical for people who pass away. By becoming a traveler of the lifestream and absorbing its knowledge, Sephiroth could eventually access the knowledge of the Cetra and the connection that they had to the planet. And this would come with the ability to use its powers as his own without the need of materia. With this, Sephiroth obtained a vast array of new abilities, each of which would emulate many of the materia that already existed within the universe, but a lot of them were unique to Sephiroth himself.
As an infamous dark wizard, Ganondorf has access to a wide and varied arsenal of magical powers. He has regeneration and resurrection to the point that if his body dies, his spirit can simply create a new one and keep on keeping on. He can fire light, lightning, fire, and energy beams, homing attacks, shape-shifting, intangibility, illusion creation. He can generate earthquakes, create magical barriers, feed off the pain, and absorb other beings to empower himself. He can stun enemies or put them to sleep. Zant, using Ganon's magic, was able to alter the forms of both Link and Midna, two fairly divine and powerful beings, as well as turn many of the world's inhabitants into disembodied souls. Pretty much every bad thing that happens in Twilight Princess can all be stemmed back to Ganondorf's power. He can as well grant life and create avatars or duplicates of himself, such as the various Phantom Ganon seen in the series or Aghanim, or even the Dark Link seen in Four Swords Adventures, as they're actually stated to be Ganon's hatred transcending time and manifesting physical form, so he's pretty hard to put down in totality. All of these beings even having their own magical abilities. This would also include the Blights seen in Age of Calamity, which, while being debatably, a different timeline. Everything again here stems from the actual main Calamity Ganon from Breath of the Wild proper, as he creates exact copies of that version of Link and that game's other heroes. He can even possess godly beings such as Princess Zelda, banish entities to gaps between dimensions, and destroy his own phantom via these means. He can curse and sicken foes like the Great Deku Tree, a godlike guardian of the forest. He can manipulate time, stopping the sky over the Great Sea from moving, and he as well resists the abilities of many of Link's weapons, those being turning an enemy into a weak slime monster, the stunning effects of the magic boomerang, fire and ice blasts, as well as the effects of the ancient arrows, stated to pretty much erase those hit by them from existence. He can even resist Link's stasis abilities as seen in Breath of the Wild, which performs similarly to other time stop abilities throughout various other fictions. Calamity Ganon was as well evidently not permanently sealed away even by the full Triforce bearing Zelda, as seen in his return in Tears of the Kingdom.
In terms of skill, it really doesn't get better than Sephiroth within Final Fantasy VII. He is the most skilled and greatest soldier first class of all time. To get into the soldier program as a recruit is extremely hard, and to climb the ranks is even harder. The gap between soldier third class and soldier first class is so wide that a soldier third class would never stand a chance against a first class in an even, fair fight. With that being said, Sephiroth is the top of the first class soldiers and can fight 2 other first class soldiers simultaneously. Every single other first class soldier that Sephiroth fights, he defeats very, very easily. Most of the time, he doesn't even need to move from where he's standing. That's how skilled he is. So, the most skilled fighters in the entire world of Final Fantasy VII are pretty much inconveniences to Sephiroth when we're talking straight sword-to-sword skill.
Ganon too is an exceptionally skilled fighter, capable of facing Link, of course, in most all of his incarnations, who is pretty much the greatest warrior in the world chosen by the gods in each era. Even in multiple other planes and dimensions, Link is still pretty much the hero to save the day. In particular, the Hero of Twilight was a warrior respected by the Hero of Time, who was capable of defeating many master-level swordsmen across his adventures. Worth noting as well for the Twilight Princess version of Ganon, despite having a formidable level of regeneration, simply being able to return to life after being killed, Ganon's own sword he takes up was able to leave a lasting wound on his body, meaning he bears a blade capable of countering or negating high-level healing factors. So with both combatants' abilities described, who would come out on top? Well, it seems on the surface level that Sephiroth is far stronger insofar as raw power is concerned. Scaling to or above infinite universes is obviously far better than nearly a million or even millions of timelines. So, in all likelihood, Ganon doesn't last very long, even if it's just a sword fight. Sephiroth would simply overpower him billions and billions of times over, if not infinitely. The only way out of this would be to say that, just like Link's potential death in Ocarina of Time, manifesting as a unique timeline, so too would all possibilities in the Zelda universe, such as the many worlds theory of quantum physics that series like DC or Marvel Comics adapt as well. Meaning the Triforce would be the ultimate power compared to infinite timelines, hosting their own series of universes such as Lorule and Termina. This would hypothetically put Ganon with the Triforce and Sephiroth in a much closer realm of power to one another, meaning in this case it would come down to their more esoteric abilities. The two of them are both master swordsmen, even fodder enemies that gang up on Link are described as such, so the two are more or less going to be equal in that department. At this point, it comes down to their hexes or magic, if you will. In many ways, they're again at a stalemate, each resisting many of the other's powers. Sephiroth has time stop, Ganon is unaffected by it. Ganon has fire magic, Sephiroth ignores it, so on and so on. This fight will be to the death, and likely force each character into their most desperate states. In truth, Sephiroth and his ability to read minds would give him a great advantage, as Ganon has no apparent mental defenses of this caliber, meaning while the one-winged angel could most likely ascertain the fact that Ganon could make clones or avatars to cheat death, Ganon would know nothing of the life stream or Sephiroth's mastery of it, being able to come back from death at will at a certain point. While the Demon King is persistent and could likely manifest and resurrect many times before being put away, sending blights or agonim type forms after Sephi, I think it's a matter of time before his very spirit is pulled into the life stream, with his only defense against this being the chance of perhaps reality warping its properties like he did to the Twilight Realm, cutting Sephiroth's connection to it. But again, it's very unlikely he'd ever figure out the nature of Sephiroth or his resurrections. It would certainly take him longer than it would for Sephiroth to determine Ganon's own means of coming back again and again. The life stream is such a foreign concept to the Zelda universe that Ganon would probably never suspect its existence, meaning over time, his consciousness would eventually be assimilated, perhaps reincarnating years or decades later, which is the case in the Final Fantasy universe as well as the Zelda universe for Ganon specifically, with Sephiroth securing this W at least until Ganon could maybe eventually come back. And with all that said, thanks to Garrick for hopping on and making this video possible, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.